Most people believe that high-octane fuel contains more energy, that it is somehow cleaner or more powerful than the cheap stuff. This is the first lie. Octane does not measure energy. It measures a chemical's stubbornness. It is a rating of how much a fuel resists exploding prematurely under pressure. If you are putting 93 octane into an engine designed for 87, you aren't giving your car a protein shake. You are giving it an expensive sedative it doesn't need. The story of how we ended up in this trap begins in 1859. Back then, oil wasn't about transportation. It was about light. People wanted kerosene to burn in their lamps so they could see at night. In those early refineries, gasoline was a terrifying volatile byproduct that nobody wanted. It was so dangerous and flammable that refinery owners would often dump it into nearby rivers under the cover of darkness. Then the automobile arrived, and the world flipped upside down. Suddenly, the waste product became the prize. But there was a massive problem: engine knock. Early engines had a fatal flaw where fuel would ignite too soon. It sounded like a hammer hitting the engine block, robbing the car of power and eventually shattering the pistons. By 1921, the industry was desperate for a fix. They tested thousands of substances to stop the fuel from exploding too early. They eventually found two solutions. One was ethanol, which was clean and could be made by any farmer with a still. The other was a chemical compound called tetraethyl lead. Ethanol was the better choice for the planet, but it had one fatal flaw for the titans of industry. You couldn't patent it. Lead, however, could be owned and sold for a massive profit. So, a coalition including General Motors and Standard Oil chose lead. They knew it was a neurotoxin, but they didn't care. They even marketed it under the name ethyl to hide the word lead. Lead gasoline spread across the globe like a viral infection. Within a decade, it dominated almost every fuel supply on Earth. Lead began to accumulate in the soil, the air, and eventually, the blood of every human being on the planet. To understand why we still obsess over octane today, we have to look inside the modern refinery. Imagine crude oil entering a massive furnace and turning into a thick, swirling vapor. To meet demand, refiners have to play God with chemistry. They use cracking to smash heavy molecules into lighter ones. This man-made cracked gasoline is chemically weak. It wants to knock and explode the moment it feels pressure. This is where octane is truly born. It is a manufactured resistance to chaos. You are paying a premium for a level of stability that your engine will never actually use. The fuel industry relies on your desire to be a good car owner. They use words like premium and ultra to trigger a status response. Gasoline is not a constant product. It is a shifting, seasonal formula. This is the secret science of seasonal chemistry. In the winter, refiners add butane to the mix. Butane is cheap and evaporates easily, which helps your car start in sub-zero temperatures. But when the sun starts to bake the asphalt in the spring, that butane becomes a liability. It evaporates too quickly, creating the toxic smog that chokes our cities. So every year, the government mandates a switch to summer blends. Summer gasoline is much more expensive to produce because they have to remove those cheap, volatile components. This is the real reason why gas prices magically spike every spring. It isn't just travel demand or geopolitical tension. It is a fundamental shift in the molecular recipe of the liquid in the underground tanks. This brings us to the man who remains the ultimate villain in this chemical history, Thomas Midgley Jr. He was the chemist who discovered that lead stopped engine knock. He was also the man who later invented Freon, the refrigerant that tore a massive hole in the ozone layer. One man, working for the interests of massive corporations, managed to cause two of the greatest environmental disasters in human history. When the lead poisoning at his factories became too obvious to ignore, Midgley held a press conference. To prove lead was safe, he poured it over his hands and breathed in its fumes for 60 seconds. Privately, he was so sick from lead poisoning that he had to take a long leave of absence to recover. He lied to the world to protect a patent, and the world paid the price for 100 years. Today, leaded gasoline is finally banned worldwide, but its legacy is still under our fingernails. It is in the dust of our older cities and the bones of the older generation. We traded human health for the ability to drive faster, and we are still making similar trade-offs every time we fall for marketing traps. So how do you protect yourself from this hidden system? The advice is simple, but the industry hates it. Open your glove box and find the owner's manual. Look for the octane requirement. If it says 87 recommended, then 87 is exactly what you should buy. Anything more is a donation to a company that already has too much of your money. If the manual says 91 required, then you must pay the premium. High-compression engines like those in sports cars will actually destroy themselves if you use low-octane fuel. In those machines, the pressure is so high that standard gas will explode before the spark plug even fires. In this case, octane is your only insurance policy. Gasoline is more than just a liquid that makes a car go. It is a story of waste turned into necessity and innovation turned into harm. It is a shifting chemical formula. It is a reminder that we are often victims of a system designed to exploit our lack of technical knowledge. Is your car actually performing better on high-octane fuel, or have you just been conditioned to believe the extra cost equals quality? We want to hear about your experiences at the pump in the comments below. Knowledge is the only fuel that never knocks under pressure.